Family is supposed to be a safety net. Blood thicker than water, unconditional love, shared roots that bind us forever. At least, that's what I was raised to believe. But life has a cruel way of revealing that blood can also be poisoned, and the people closest to you can be the very ones who cut the deepest. My brother, Daniel, and I grew up in the same house, under the same roof, with the same parents who sacrificed everything to give us a decent life. He was 2 years older, charismatic, confident, the golden boy in everyone's eyes. I was the quiet one, the dependable one, the one who stayed behind the scenes while Daniel basked in attention. When our father died unexpectedly, the ground beneath us cracked. My mother, already frail, leaned on both of us, but the weight of grief fell heavier on me. I handled the funeral, the finances, the endless paperwork. Daniel showed up late, gave a speech that made him sound like the perfect son, then disappeared with friends while I held my mother as she sobbed herself to sleep. I should have known then. Weeks later, when the lawyer called us in to discuss my father's will, Daniel showed up in a crisp suit, all smiles and charm. I was too numb to notice the way he avoided my eyes. The will was simple. My father had left everything, the house, the small business, the savings, to both of us equally. 50-50, the lawyer said, his voice calm, final. My father's way of keeping us bound together even after he was gone. But Daniel's smile that day wasn't the smile of a grieving son. It was the smile of a man already planning to take more than his share. It began subtly. He pressured my mother to let him manage the finances, claiming I was too emotional to handle business. He whispered that selling the house would be best, though he never once asked how I felt about leaving the only place that still held our father's memory. He made late-night visits to the lawyer's office, signing papers I knew nothing about. At first, I ignored it. I told myself Daniel was just being practical. Maybe he thought he was protecting me. But when I noticed bank withdrawals I hadn't approved and documents missing from the safe, the truth hit me. He wasn't protecting me. He was cutting me out. The betrayal became undeniable when I stumbled across an envelope tucked inside my mother's dresser. Inside were unsigned copies of transfer of ownership forms, papers that would give Daniel full control of the business and property. My name wasn't on them. And my mother, my sweet, fragile mother, had no idea. He had told her it was just standard paperwork. The rage that boiled in me that night was unlike anything I had ever felt. This wasn't just money. This wasn't just property. This was my father's legacy, his life's work, being stolen out from under me by the one person I should have trusted the most. But I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because I realized something important. Daniel thought I was weak. He thought I'd bow my head and accept whatever scraps he left me. He had no idea I was watching. He had no idea I was documenting every move. And he had no idea that while he was plotting to steal from me, I was already planning how to destroy him with the truth. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about justice. About revenge. About showing my brother that betrayal has a price, and I was more than ready to make him pay it. The night I found those transfer documents, something inside me shifted. My grief hardened into resolve. For weeks I had been drowning, letting Daniel's charm and manipulation wash over everything. But not anymore. He wanted to play a game of deceit. Then I would play it better. The first thing I did was stop telling Daniel anything. I let him believe I was oblivious, the naive younger sibling too wrapped up in mourning to notice what was happening. I smiled at him when he made vague promises about taking care of everything. I even thanked him when he told my mother he would handle the heavy decisions. All the while, I began keeping meticulous notes. I tracked every bank withdrawal, every suspicious meeting with the lawyer, every signature that didn't match my mother's trembling handwriting. I took photos of documents when Daniel wasn't looking. Slowly, I was building a case, not just in the eyes of the law, but in the eyes of my mother. Because when the time came, she needed to see the truth with her own eyes. But Daniel wasn't just cunning. He was ruthless. A month later, he told my mother that selling the house would be the best way to move forward. He painted a picture of a new life for her in a small apartment closer to the city, claiming she was too frail to live alone in a large house. My mother, still vulnerable from grief, Almost agreed. Almost. That night, I sat beside her at the kitchen table. "Mom," I whispered, sliding the unsigned transfer forms in front of her. "Do you know what these are?" Her hands shook as she read them. At first, confusion clouded her eyes. Then fear. Then devastation. "Daniel," he said. Her voice cracked. "I know what he said," I interrupted gently. "But look at this. Look at where my name should be." For the first time since Dad's death, I saw fire return to her expression. A fragile, broken fire, but fire nonetheless. We agreed not to confront Daniel right away. Instead, I suggested something else. Let him continue digging his own grave. Let him believe he was winning. Meanwhile, I would make sure the lawyer knew what was really happening. The next week, I scheduled a private meeting with the family lawyer. His brows furrowed as I laid out the copies, the withdrawals, the signatures that didn't add up. At first, he hesitated. Daniel had always charmed his way through these offices. But when I showed him the handwriting discrepancies and my notes, he sat back heavily in his chair. "This is serious," he admitted. "Serious enough to stop him?" I asked. He nodded. "But timing is everything. If we expose him now, he'll deny it. He's clever enough to spin this as a misunderstanding." So we waited. And Daniel, blinded by greed, kept digging. He listed the business for sale behind my back. He began moving assets into accounts I didn't recognize. He even staged a scene one evening, pretending to comfort my mother while slyly slipping more papers in front of her to sign. But what he didn't know was that she and I had agreed to record everything. Every conversation, every manipulation. His words, his own arrogance, were now evidence. The real breaking point came when I intercepted a phone call. Daniel was talking to a real estate agent, his voice smooth and self-assured. "Yes, once the paperwork is signed, I'll have full control. My sister won't be an issue. She's too soft." Those words burned into me. Too soft. That night, I made my decision. Enough waiting. Enough letting him tighten the noose. It was time to flip the script. I called the lawyer, sent him the recordings, and asked a single question. "When we bring him down, can we do it in front of everyone?" The lawyer chuckled grimly. "Oh, yes. We can." The plan was set. At the next family meeting, Daniel would walk in expecting victory. But instead, he'd be greeted with the very truth he tried so hard to bury. And this time, there would be no way out. The day of the family meeting dawned colder than usual, though maybe it was just my nerves. I woke up early, reviewing the stack of documents and the flash drive filled with recordings. Every detail, every lie Daniel had told, every trick he had played, it was all here, waiting to come crashing down on him. By noon, the lawyer arrived at our house, carrying a thick folder under his arm. My mother sat quietly in the living room, hands folded tightly in her lap. She was pale, but there was a determination in her eyes I hadn't seen since before my father died. She wasn't just a grieving widow anymore. She was a mother ready to defend her children and her husband's legacy. When Daniel finally walked in, his usual smug confidence filled the room. He kissed my mother's cheek, gave me a thin smile, and clapped the lawyer on the back as though they were lifelong friends. "Well, I'm glad we're all here," he announced, dropping into a chair. "I've been handling things for weeks now, and it's time we finalize some decisions. The house, the business, everything's ready to be signed over. This way, Mom, you won't have to worry about anything. I'll take care of it all." His voice dripped with false sincerity, each word carefully crafted to sound noble. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have believed him myself. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Daniel, before we move forward, there are a few matters we need to address." Daniel raised an eyebrow, his smile unwavering. "Of course. Go ahead." That's when the lawyer laid the folder on the table and opened it. Page after page of evidence spread out like a storm. Bank transfers, unauthorized signatures, forged documents, all with Daniel's fingerprints all over them. Daniel's smile faltered for the first time. "What is this?" "Your trail," I said coldly, sliding the flash drive across the table. "And this, your voice." The lawyer plugged the drive into a laptop, and soon the room filled with Daniel's own words. His voice played back, confident and damning. Once the paperwork is signed, I'll have full control. My sister won't be an issue. She's too soft. The silence that followed was suffocating. My mother's eyes glistened with tears, not just from betrayal, but from fury. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. "How could you?" He stammered, trying to gather himself. "It's not what it sounds like. I was just protecting us. Protecting the family. By stealing from us." I snapped. "By forging Mom's signature and selling off Dad's life's work." The lawyer's tone was firm, professional, but sharp as a knife. "Daniel, what you've done is fraud. Forgery. If we took this to court right now, you'd be facing prison time. The only reason we're even having this conversation is because your mother deserves to hear the truth first." Daniel's mask cracked completely. He paled, then flushed, then looked at me with a mix of rage and desperation. "You set me up," he hissed. "No," I shot back. "You set yourself up. You just thought no one was paying attention." My mother's voice cut through the tension, stronger than I'd heard it in months. "Your father built this family with love and honesty. And you," she pointed at Daniel, her finger shaking but resolute, "you tried to tear it apart for money. You are no son of mine if this is who you've become." Daniel's shoulders slumped. For a moment, I thought he might actually apologize, might beg for forgiveness. But instead, his face hardened. "You'll regret this," he muttered, pushing back his chair. The lawyer's hand stopped him. "Not so fast. You're not walking away from this without consequences." Daniel's eyes flicked to me, venomous, but I didn't flinch. "What happens now?" I asked the lawyer. "Is up to Mom." The room fell quiet. My mother took a long, shaky breath, her gaze fixed on Daniel. "You want to know what happens now?" she said, her voice low but steady. "You will sign over every last asset you tried to steal. You will step away from the business your father built. And you will never try to manipulate this family again." Daniel sneered. "And if I don't?" The lawyer leaned forward, his voice calm but lethal. "Then I'll make one phone call, and you'll be answering to a judge instead of your mother." The fight drained out of Daniel. He slumped into the chair, his arrogance finally broken. For hours, he signed papers under the lawyer's watchful eye, undoing everything he had tried to take. By the time it was over, his hands shook with fury, but his empire of lies had crumbled into nothing. When he finally stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind him, the silence that followed was heavy, but this time, it was peaceful. My mother reached over and took my hand. "Your father would be proud," she whispered. I nodded, but inside, I felt more than pride. I felt relief. Not just that justice had been served, but that I had proven something to Daniel, and maybe even to myself. I wasn't too soft. I wasn't blind. I was stronger than he ever imagined. And in the end, that strength had saved everything he tried to destroy.